Let's get into it. This Joe Rogan clip, listen, I do the watching, so a lot of people don't have to. If you're going to watch, listen, the Graham Hancock and the Flint debate, I think his name's Flint Dibble or something like that. But this debate is 4.5 hours long, okay? They're talking about a bunch of things, ancient civilizations, what archaeology says and what Graham Hancock says. And if you're going to watch one clip from that interview, this is the one. Graham Hancock calls out this dude, Flint, so hard for trying to brand Graham Hancock as a white supremacist, a racist, linking him to Nazi ideology, conspiracy theory. Graham Hancock just goes all in. It's supposed to just be a debate just about, how things ended up in the world. A younger Dryas impact and Egypt and all these things. But instead, Graham Hancock just sideswipes this guy. I don't even think Joe saw this coming. And he just decides, you know what? Let's get into it. He did his own clap. He was like, let's get into it. You know what I mean? It's such a good clip because this guy is so woke and is just so smug in all his ideas that to see him try to squirm out of this whole saying all these things about Graham and then trying to wiggle his way out of it, it's just pure gold. Let's get into it. Don't forget about the new channel where I break away from the Rogan content. It's Coach Colin Media. Hit that subscribe button. There's a link in the description. Let's get right into this Joe Rogan clip. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't have time to get into it here. I want to complete what I was saying, which is the influence that Flint and his colleagues have on media and culture. And if we can put my HDMI back on, yeah. So this was the next slide. This is Benjamin Steele from the SEO journal, Search Engine Journal. Thank you, Flint Dibble, for speaking with him. And we're learning that how algorithms are rewarding good faith critique by legit scientists and creators. People ask, here's just a Google search. Archaeologist Flint Dibble says Hancock's claims reinforce white supremacist ideas, stripping indigenous people of their rich heritage, and instead giving credit to aliens or white people. Actually, I've never...
Did you really say that?
No, I said that this idea of Atlantis, the way it goes back 200 years, it has been used for those reasons.
So are you saying your quote is incorrect?
I think that it's editing me out of context, Graham. I've never called you a white supremacist or a racist.
No, you said that. Hang on, that's because you're very, if I may say so, very slippery in the way that you deal with, because you know perfectly well that saying that my work encourages white supremacism and encourages racism is going to end up with me being tarred as a racist. And you know very well that tarring somebody as a racist in this day, look at the results there, down there. Make no mistake, Hancock is a white supremacist like Trump. It's racist fiction pretending to be
These
science.
are not my words.
But
no,
I'm talking about your influence on media and culture.
You cite 19th century sources, you cite 16th century sources, and I label those as racist. And I see it as a problem to readapt those kind of sources without critiquing them, because this idea of a white Atlantis is what existed in the 19th century.
I have no such idea.
But you might not, but you're citing those sources uncritically.
Why should I not cite them?
And I never make that the foreground of anything that I write. I put that in there as a paragraph, and I say he should not be citing these kind of sources without critiquing them, because they do the harm. There's a lot of harm in the history.
Can you be specific about that? What are these sources that you're citing about Atlantis, and why do you think that they reinforce white supremacy?
Yeah, sure. So the reason is because for a long time, Atlantis was used as a colonial justification by the Crown of Spain for claiming land in the New World. And so what this idea of Atlantis from the 16th build up into the 19th century with the book on Atlantis by Ignatius Donnelly, it described this as this kind of global superpower that was, European and that was responsible for these monuments in indigenous areas. It stripped credit away from local cultures of their heritage.
Right, but he's not doing that.
I never said he did. I said that he's citing these sources.
But this is something that is a very nuanced subject. Mm-hmm. And when you say that it reinforces white supremacy...
Again, I said the sources do.
Right, but go back to the quote, Jamie.
But
go back to the tweet.
But
listen, this quote here reinforce white supremacist ideas, stripping indigenous people with a rich heritage, and instead giving credit to aliens or white people. None of those things are true.
I know Graham doesn't even talk about aliens.
Right, but
and so
did
that's
you
why
say that?
I said that not in specific relation to Hancock's claims, but in specific relation to this narrative of Atlantis that has gone back hundreds of years.
Right, but that...
Here's the Guardian. So they're misquoting you, are they? As Dibble states, such claims reinforce white supremacist ideas. They strip indigenous people of their rich heritage and instead give credit to aliens or white people. Why didn't you get the Guardian to put that right?
Well, I don't.
Did you
decide
actually
what
say
they
that,
write.
though?
I did not say that Graham reinforces white supremacist ideas. As I've said,
So this
the
quote is not real?
They stripped the stories of Atlantis, yes, and I think that that's an issue. So Graham, you go around the world to megalithic sites, right?
So the quote reinforce white supremacist ideas, that's not yours.
No, that's not a quote. It's not in quotation.
Right, it was in the other article. That's what I'm getting
And
to.
again,
They strip indigenous people of their rich heritage and give credit to aliens or white people.
Well-
In short, the series promotes ideas of race science that are outdated and long debunked. And this is
Yeah,
your
I did
own.
not say.
Right, but
this
that's
is your
not
own,
his quote,
This is
though.
your own article, Flint. Here you are. I'm quoting from. That's a quote from your article published in The Conversation. This sort of race science is outdated and long since debunked, especially given the strong links between Atlantis and Aryans proposed by several Nazi archaeologists. You are associating me with this, and you are attempting to get me
I'm asking
cancelled
you to
effectively.
distance yourself from that. Is
But
actually what I'm trying
but
to
that's
do.
not what you're doing, though. You're associating him with that, clearly.
I
It's
don't think so.
propaganda.
I do
you
not see
don't
this as
think that?
propaganda.
Look at the way it's phrased on
Okay.
your article. This sort of race science is outdated and long since debunked, especially given the strong links between Atlantis and Aryans proposed by several Nazi archaeologists. That's like a part of the headline.
So you want me to show you some tweets I've gotten from people that are
I am-
fans of Graham
no,
Hancock
no,
and
no, no,
think
no, no, no,
that-
no, no. Listen, stop. Don't do that. They're not connected to him. They're just humans. There's a lot of crazy people in the world. This is you. We're talking about you.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say is that people misinterpret Graham. There's lots of people on the internet that think that he's talking about a lost white
Right,
civilization.
but this is something that you chose to highlight at the top of the page.
No, I did not highlight that at the top of the page.
Why is
That's-
that like that?
I-
That's, he
that's
did
a
that.
quote
That's
from-
actually near the end of it.
That's a quote from the article.
That's near the end of it.
But why is it up there like that?
I put it there.
You did it. Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
I did not put that there
I'm
like
just
that.
taking I'm just taking an
Okay.
extract from Flint's article.
Okay, but you did print it. You did print that this sort of race science is outdated, long since debunked. What were you referring to when you said that? If you weren't
Yeah.
referring to Graham.
I was referring to his take on the Olmec heads, where he described them as from an African culture. And he specifically took that from Ignatius Donnelly, who also described them that way, almost in the exact same words based on their facial appearances, despite the fact that Ann Cyphers has done excavation there and demonstrated with DNA and artifacts that these were indigenous people from that area in Mexico. And so that was an older essay that Graham has written, and that was what that quote was specifically relevant to.
But how does it reinforce white supremacist ideas that they were seafaring Africans?
Well, because again, it strips credit away from the people who actually did that.
Right,
So
but that doesn't reinforce white supremacy. It reinforces, look, if anything, he's trying to say that it was black people from Africa that were able to seafare and create
using
these structures.
some pretty silly stereotypes is what I said.
What do you mean about facial features?
Yeah, yeah.
But there's many people that have made those connections. Looking at those, they look Polynesian,
And
perhaps.
yet the people that have excavated it and done the DNA right at that site at San Lorenzo have shown that none of those people had African descent.
Right, but what are those structures representative of? Are they the people that were there?
Of course.
But is it possible?
No,
that those
we have no
structures
evidence of African people
Right,
in
we
the
don't have any
Americas.
evidence of it, but we do have the actual structure of those faces, and they do. I mean, be honest, they look either Polynesian
I can
or
bring up
No.
some.
They look fascinating.
Excuse me.
They're
I can
cool.
I can bring up some imagery on that.
Okay.
And perhaps we'll do that next. But I would just love to just complete this little point that I
Yes.
want to make here, which is the influence of Flint and his colleagues on media and culture. And again, we've got the Society for American Archaeology, 5,000 members. Flint is one. Flint's co-author, John Hoops, actually helped to write this letter for the Society of American Archaeology. They're saying that I embolden extreme voices that misrepresent archaeological knowledge in order to spread false historical narratives that are overtly misogynistic, chauvinistic, racist, and anti-Semitic. I mean, you apply those labels to somebody and you're going to get that person hated
threw
by
the
a lot of
whole-
people.
Whole ball.
I did not write that.
No, your co-author, John Hoops, wrote it. We urge Netflix to add disclaimers that the content is unfounded. They want it to be called science fiction. In other words, that's a very clever way of cancelling me.
No.
Cancel culture at work.
Go back to that. Why would
And
someone...
here's Flint.
Graham, you're
Here's
so
Flint.
much more of a celebrity than me.
Here's Flint. Netflix. Correct. I'm
Come
sorry.
on.
I'm sorry that I am, Flint. That's not really my problem. Hey,
people saying I have
Netflix.
this power.
Hey, Netflix. Correct your mistake and reclassify Ancient Apocalypse as fantasy. Netflix corrects your mistakes. This is you pushing this, Flint. And then the general media
tiny
fishy
Twitter
Netflix
accounts?
show, Ancient Apocalypse, is the most dangerous show on Netflix. You use the word dangerous
Where?
repeatedly in your conversation piece.
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever called you dangerous, Graham. I've not called you these things. You're misinterpreting me.
You don't think I'm dangerous? You don't think that...
I think that the way that you refer to archaeology as, you say that you're number one enemy of archaeology and things like that, you are promoting people to dislike what we do. We are doing our jobs. No, you started off Ancient Apocalypse by calling us patronizing and arrogant.
Archaeologists see me as public enemy number one.
That's you exactly started off by saying we're not sitting around thinking about you. Most of my dad's colleagues, when I mentioned I'm coming on here to do this, they had no idea you talk about the Ice Age. They
I'm
thought you
speaking
talk
of
about
archaeologists
pyramids.
like you, Flint, who see me as public enemy number one and who have quite a substantial outreach in the media. Unilad,
right here.
Pseudo-archaeology, as Dibble calls it, acts to reinforce white supremacist ideas. Flint Dibble interview, Ancient Apocalypse, Graham Hancock, and conspiracy theories. I mean, what the fuck is a conspiracy theory? That archaeologists are conspiring against me, which I've never said or ever suggested.
You claim we're trying to hide the evidence,
no,
just
I
like
don't.
with Clovis First. We shut down alternative narratives. That's a conspiracy theory.
Hang on, tell me where I've claimed that you hide the evidence.
You have claimed many times that we try to shut down alternative narratives, that we try to silence them. That suggests there's an archaeological conspiracy where we're all working together to have one narrative.
No, it suggests that there's a strongly held point of view, there's a paradigm, and that those who go against the paradigm are likely to be attacked, like Tom Dillahay, like Jacques Cinq-Mars.
All of them...
Wow. I can't let it run any longer, but they keep going back and forth, but that is the basic meat of it, because the real thing at hand is that they are trying to brand him as a racist and a white supremacist. And I remember a year ago when Jeremy Corsetti was on JRE, he was talking about Graham Hancock being branded as racist. And he was talking about how there is this, I don't know, big archaeology that tries to keep things a certain way, which makes sense. They do have a vested interest. They do get funded based on their ideas. And if their ideas are long-standing, it means that they actually are, correct, because it's hard to be correct for so long. They do push people aside who try to break that, because you're taking away their money. You're taking away their funding. You're taking away their legacy. These guys have written books. They've done projects. They've done talks. And then all of a sudden, this guy, Graham Hancock, comes out of nowhere and says, this is actually how it was. It makes them all look wrong. To act like there's no vested interest in all of them keeping this idea the same way. Like, controlling narrative. When do we see people in power not try to control narrative? It's in their interest to keep things the same. So it's very, very interesting that they went back and forth like this. And I just want to show you really quick that he actually did. Is this the one that he wrote? Let me just get the one that he wrote. He really did say this stuff. Yeah, this is the one that he actually wrote himself. Let's check this out, people. Oh, come on. Pictures of cats. Come on. Dibble. Dibble's his name? Sorry, Dibble. Let's go down here. So he actually did write a bunch of stuff that was branding Hancock as racist. Here, let's go down here. The dangers of pseudo-archaeology. Let's just bring this up. Bang. So in the last decade, we've seen how conspiracy theories and distrust in experts impact the world around us. And research has shown how pseudo-archaeology, especially when couched in anti-intellectual rhetoric, can overlap more dangerous conspiracy thinking. This guy, it's so funny that whether it's media, whether it's politics, there's this wave of anyone who doesn't like what someone has to say, anyone who's pushing against a narrative, always gets branded with these things. We see it constantly here, the murky origins. It's all the way down here. There we go. Here we go. Check this out. Okay, so let's just get into this part right here. So scholars and journalists have pointed out that Hancock's ideas recycle long since discredited conclusions drawn by U.S. Congressman, we'll just call him Donnelly, in his book Atlantis, that was published in 1882. Donnelly also believed in an ancient civilization, advanced civilization, Atlantis, that was wiped out by a flood 10,000 years ago. He claimed that the survivors taught indigenous people the secrets of farming and monumental agriculture. Isn't that an actual story? Don't they say that about Thoth and all those Egyptian mythical types, that they actually did teach people writing and engineering and agriculture? They like taught the Egyptians. Thought that was a known thing. But look here. Like many forms of pseudo-archaeology, these claims act to reinforce white supremacist ideas, stripping indigenous people from their rich heritage and instead giving credit to aliens or white people. So these are actual things that he did say in his own article. It's wild because you know what you're doing when you do that. When you see a politician say, when you hear them say, well, you know, the people just spreading disinformation and misinformation, those are the people we have to really focus on. Those people, you know, you can't trust those people. When we hear them say that, we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to brand whoever's pushing against the narrative as somebody who has misinformation, somebody who is wrong. And they're trying to frame them as innately wrong, no matter what they have to say. And when you're a headline reader, that actually works. You call somebody racist and it sticks. Again, especially if you're a headline reader. If someone just sees 5 headlines that just say Graham Hancock, white supremacist, Graham Hancock, that actually happened to Coleman Hughes. Coleman Hughes was on the JRE, not his most recent appearance, but the one before that, and he called somebody a white supremacist. And then Joe Rogan digged into it a little bit, and he's like, there's nothing here about this guy being a white supremacist. And he was like, he goes, that's why I can't trust journalism. He's like, can't trust journalists, really. You know, he's like, I should have looked into it more. Because some people just read headlines. If you just watch mainstream television, you'll think certain things about Trump. You'll think certain things about Biden. You'll think certain things about J6, and you will just have one narrative. And this guy knew what he was doing when he was framing him as a white supremacist, linking him. Because here's what he says in that little debate that they had. He says, I'm not saying that he is. I want him to distance himself from those ideas. Well, the thing is, ideas, this gentleman that they're talking about, Donnelly, he had these ideas. Just because Graham Hancock is similar to those ideas doesn't mean now he's similar to white supremacy. If I say something that a white supremacist said 100 years ago, I'm now not linked to white supremacy. That's not how that works. But when you want people to start looking at someone, looking down on someone, you're going to make that distinction. Now, Hancock even cites Donnelly directly in his book, 1995, Fingerprints of the Gods, claiming the road system and the sophisticated agriculture had been ancient in the time of the Incas, but that both were the work of white auburn-haired people, white auburn-haired men. While the skin color is not brought up in Ancient Apocalypse, the repetition of the story of a bearded Quetzalcoatl, which is a Mexican deity, parrots both Donnelly's and Hancock's own summary of white and bearded Quetzalcoatl teaching native people knowledge from this lost civilization. This is wild. So he's really trying to connect them to that. And I have more, just so you know. I'm just focusing right now on the one that he actually wrote himself. To say that he didn't say these things. Hancock mirroring Donnelly's race-focused science, quotes, science, is seen as more implicitly in his essay, Mysterious Strangers. Oh, let me make sure you guys can see that. My bad. Mysterious Strangers, New Findings About the First Americas. Like Donnelly, see, the whole time he is trying to compare him to this guy. He's trying to frame that guy as a white supremacist, and he's trying to link Hancock to him directly. Finds depictions of Caucasoids and Negroids. I'm so immature. Why am I laughing at that? In indigenous arts and often mistranslated mythology in the Americas, even drawing attention to some of the exact same sculptures as Donnelly. This sort of race science is outdated and has long been since debunked. Debunked by who? Especially given the strong links between Atlantis and Aryans by several Nazi archaeologists. It's just wild that he said all this, and then at the same time, all these other publications are just quoting him from his article And he's like, no. They're saying that different. No, that's not in quotations. And he's kind of suggesting that he didn't say certain things. When he actually did, this is funny enough, is, again, somebody else trying to frame Graham as a white supremacist. They just keep linking all these things. If you look here at the bottom, they say that Graham has, according to Professor Nunn, as soon as you start taking it seriously, then you are engaging with nonsense and demeaning racist informed agendas. And I think that's where it becomes really dangerous. So that was a little quote where they were talking about, I never called you dangerous. He actually didn't. Somebody else called him dangerous. Then this was actually written by Mr. Hoops. They were talking about this gentleman named Hoops. Was this one written by him? The thing is, there's so many. No, Betsy Reed, sorry. So there's so many of these articles coming out. They all are just trying to frame Brand. Look, and then there were the Nazis. Many swore by the idea that a white Nordic superior race, people of the purest blood, had come from Atlantis. As a result, Himmler set up an SS unit. I have no idea, but we'll just say an SS unit of ancestral heritage in 1935 to find out where people from Atlantis ended up after their homeland was destroyed. It's just continuous like that. There is an actual concerted effort, in my opinion, to actually frame Graham Hancock as a racist. And as you saw, he even said to Netflix in a tweet that they should correct their mistake and brand this as fantasy. How is that not someone trying to take another person's discoveries and opinions in archaeology and push that narrative aside? Brand that as fantasy. That's like someone says something to me and I say, well, we should all consider this a lie. Just so you guys know, that's a lie. And he's like, no, that's what I think. And I'm coming to this conclusion because of this, this, and this. I think we should all just correct what he's saying right now as a lie. I don't know, man. I don't know. It makes me think that Graham's actually onto something. And you know what's the weirdest thing about all this is? Graham's talking about these statues. And he's saying how they look black. And then he is framing that, Mr. Dibble is it? Facial features are stereotypes. He's like, he's going with some pretty outdated stereotypes. He's just talking about facial features. That's when Joe Rogan's like, you mean the facial features? It's not a stereotype. If somebody has a wide, flatter nose, that's not a stereotype. They could have, there are black noses. There are white noses. There are Asian. We all know what each other's facial features look like. And are we all held to them no matter what? No. But, like, come on. And then it's so funny because he's saying that you're taking away these people's rich heritage and you're giving credit to aliens or white people. But in reality, Graham's actually trying to give credit to a potential African society that was able to get into boats and actually move around. And again, I don't know if that's true. I have no idea. But to suggest that Graham Hancock is racist because he thinks in this region of the world, it wasn't these indigenous people, but it was actually these African people who made these things, is so wild to me. And again, it shows his disdain for Graham Hancock. In my opinion, ancient. I actually want to see these things. I forgot to pull these up. The almanacs. What do these things look like? Okay. So yeah, it looks like, I don't know. Looks kind of black. Looks like it could be, but who knows? You know? This is all that's coming up for me. No, that's the Mayan calendar. So I don't actually, it's just showing me that when I type in the almanacs. I don't know why. Brave has gone with this new AI thing. You see? It's actually using AI. You see that? That's ChatGPT. I have no idea why it's doing that now, but it's linked with this woke ideology. So it's not exactly going to show you the things that you're looking for anymore. Kind of worrisome, but whatever. I'm sure it'll come in handy. But it's just funny that Graham suggesting that these people of color, or maybe not of color, because no one actually knows, are the ones responsible, not these indigenous people. And somehow that's white supremacy. Mental gymnastics. But here's the thing, all the time with these left-leaning woke people, and I am going to frame that gentleman as that. I doubt that gentleman, especially calling somebody racist like Trump or a white supremacist like Trump. I doubt that he is a conservative in his values. So I am going to frame him as that. And it's just funny how they do these mental gymnastics when they want to discredit someone. And again, it happens in politics, archaeology, apparently, Hollywood, everywhere. Anywhere, the one thing that's in common is what they call you: disinformation, misinformation, racist, misogynistic. And the other thing that's common is that it's always someone pushing against the narrative. But I just wanted to show you guys that. I know I talked a lot and there was a lot of reading and stuff, but I just wanted to show you guys that. Graham just deciding, like, yo, I'm going to call this guy out right now. I have this ready. I have the articles queued up and I'm going to call this guy out. They go back and forth for a little while, but they start talking in circles and they don't really address the fact that this guy was trying to make Graham seem racist. They just start talking about, the archaeology stuff. But again, if you actually want to see that, let me give you guys a timestamp for that one, because it's a huge episode. It's hard for people to get through it. That's 2 hours. If you go to 2 hours, 25 minutes, you'll see the most heated part. That's the most heated part by far. Very interesting. Graham Hancock, good on you, man. Good on you. Don't let these woke people just call you things and get away with it. Hold them to account. Really nice. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe. It helps a ton. And other than that, I'm out.